Welcome to part 4 of Crafting a Powerful Lesson in Google Classroom virtual style, where we are going to be focusing on evidence of learning. And just to remind you, these are the 5 components: the learning target, the steps to completion, content delivery, content processing, and now we are going to focus on this evidence of learning and assessments, right? Final piece that we're going to go over is going to be steps to completion, but this is the next piece that we're going over. And just to remind you, this is kind of what the lessons have looked like so far, where we are crafting lessons in here that have things that are content delivery, like this right here. We even have all of these pieces up in here in step number 3, which is the content processing. And now you'll see we've got an example down here of evidence of learning or assessments right here, where we've got a Google form. But let's first talk a tiny bit about what it means to have some evidence of learning and what kind of things we can use for evidence of learning. Just like content delivery, just like content processing, honestly, it's wide open. Whatever you can think of can qualify as evidence of learning. You just want students to turn something back into you, or give you something, or prove that they've learned something, either through an assessment or through collecting an artifact. It doesn't really matter. And so this is a beautiful part of Google Classroom and virtual learning, is that you can really open up the differentiation walls with this and allow students to turn in or express themselves in thousands and thousands of different ways. A simple one would be just documentation, asking them to turn in a worksheet or a slideshow, etc., like a Google slide or even a Google sheet where they've got cells filled in with mathematical inputs, etc. It doesn't matter. Digital assessments, from Google Forms to assessments to formative, all of these things qualify as digital assessment. Obviously, you can test a student, quiz a student, you can have formative assessment, summative assessment, you can have student self-checks, you could just do simple exit tickets. Doesn't really matter. You can assess them in any way, shape, or form. You could even have them just upload artifacts, like I said. Just take a picture of themselves outside having crafted a bridge made out of popsicle sticks out on their back patio, and they upload it just to prove that they did some of the content processing that you asked them to do. You could have them turn in digital artwork that they've worked on a software that's online. You could have them turn in a video of themselves enacting their favorite part of the play that you just read. You could even have them turn in a certificate that they earned someplace else on a different platform, learning the same content, because you're open to them showing their mastery and their evidence of learning. So let's take a look at a couple more examples before we go over to Google Classroom and actually start crafting 3 probably very distinct, different versions of evidence of learning tracking. Here's one more example right here. Complete question 3 survey. That's this right here, the What I Got. This is a quick survey ascertaining whether or not students understood what they just got delivered to them and what they were just asked to process through the lesson. Then we have, in this case, respond to the Crafting a Good Lesson form. In other words, it's a Google form again, but it's really just a response where they have free form response options. It's open-ended, and the students can type in whatever they'd like and whatever they know about. They're just reflecting on what they just learned. In other words, very similar to the content processing, because you could ask students to reflect on something, and that's content processing. But as soon as you ask them to reflect on something and you collect it, now you're turning it into evidence of learning. So really, you're actually doing 2 steps in one in this case. Now it's time to pause here and flip over to the Google Classroom side, where we see how we create things like Google Forms, quick questions, and maybe ask students to just upload something to Google Classroom so that you can collect those evidences of learning. Back in our class here, we are going to jump into our social studies lesson that we've been working on. I'm going to hit edit assignment, and now we're going to add some of those evidences of learning. We're going to add too many, more than you should actually put in here, but just to get an idea, to get a sense, we're going to create a few things. I'm going to go in here and add a Google form from Google Drive, this first link, as their evidence of learning, because I've already created the Google form. It asks 4 basic questions about any lesson. It just says, what was your favorite part? And so it's a canned Google form asking them to reflect on things, but it makes it very easy for me to drop that in repeatedly if I desire to do so. Problem with this is, in Google Drive, the general Google Drive, you have a little search option up here at the top, and you can use the drop down right here, and it gives you Google Forms as one of your form types in here. In here, it doesn't do that. So you can either look up the name of the form that you're looking for. So you could type in reflection or whatever that you named it, and hopefully it shows up as your Google form, and then you grab it and throw it in there. So reading article reflection, here's one. I can take that and throw that in there. Or you actually can use this little hack right here where you say type, and this is the file type, and then just say form, and now it should show you all of your Google Forms that are in your drive. And so I'm going to take and use this fake form right here, which is asking the students to submit information about what they just learned, right? And so this is asking them to reflect on something. It's fake, I understand, but it's a bogus class, so it kind of fits. If I want to take a look at this form, I can certainly just click on this, and it takes me to the form that I've created where it says, what do you like? What's your favorite kind of food in this case, which is pretty silly. But this is the form, and I can certainly change this. And if I change this, it actually changes the form on this side too. So you don't need to continue to re-add it every time you make changes to the form. It's already linked in here. Even if you change the name of it, it changes it in here. That's one of the simplest ways to add an assessment piece that's baked into your lesson. You could also do something similar to what we did before, which is you could go and link a Google Doc in here or even create a brand new one. You can even create a brand new document right here like we looked at before, asking students to reflect on something, turn something in, etc., using these tools over here. So for instance, I actually could say, I want everyone in the science class to submit all their data to this Google Sheet, and I'm going to create the sheet on the fly here. It says it's creating the sheet. Now I open this sheet, and I can put in whatever directions I want in here. I could say, fill in your lab data below. And then I could put in all the information in here about what I expect them to fill in. I could put in the information over here and give them the fields to fill in the data. But you get the idea, I hope, and how easy it is to actually create a spreadsheet on the fly. So I'll just call this lab data. There we go. And now when I go back to my classroom, just like before when we used a different tool, when we refresh the class here, it's going to pop me out. But now that social studies unit has that called lab data now, and I have a whole bunch of stuff that's being collected inside of this lesson now. Pretty much overkill at this point, but I hope that you're starting to see the options and opportunities that you have for creating simple ways to collect information from students, and again, to collect assessments, to have them process information. Let's take a quick look at this lab data and notice that this has that option like we've been talking about repeatedly, where you can say, make a copy for each student, so when they do turn it in, it has their name on it. They have all their own data for themselves. They don't have to make their own copy. It does it for them, so I'm going to choose that. And now I'm going to talk about the very last thing that I may want students to do in order to collect evidence of learning. The final option has to do with something that isn't in your Google Drive or isn't in Google Classroom at all, but utilizing some third-party or extra apps that can do assessments for you or help you with assessments. From assessments to Quizlet to formative, there's no end of different softwares and options out there that can help you provide assessments that you can recapture or reuse inside of your Google Classroom. I'm going to give you a super quick example of just using formative, where we've created a quick survey right here, a quick questionnaire about the Civil War information that we've asked them to go through. And all I have to do in this case, this is just running over this. You don't have to know how to use GoFormative. You don't have to know how to use assessments or anything at this point. There's different lessons for that. But I just want to show you how I can grab this link up here to this formative piece where students can respond to this. I could make classes in here and assign it out with this assign button through Google Classroom. Actually, there's an option for that, but we're just taking the shortcut here and we're saying add the link like this. It's just a link, right? It's a web link. That address that I just stole is a link to this assessment that I want them to fill out. And there you can see it says Go Formative. You can say join. So it recognized it. It's even got the cute little image in there. So now I have the ability to send them to Go Formative to actually go fill out that form and respond to my questions. That's at least a really good start to understanding multiple different ways that you can start collecting evidence of learning and assessments using Google Classroom. There are, like I alluded to before, thousands and thousands of different ways. And if you think of creative ways outside of what we just talked about, awesome. Good for you. Explore, be innovative, and try new things with your students and try to have them interact and show their evidence of learning in multiple different ways.